Are you guys drunk yet?
Dude, we got our beer though.
I got a gin and tonic, and I don't usually drink gin and tonic, so I never have made a gin and tonic. And it's a lot of gin. So that's one thing, but the other thing is that I don't mind it.
Okay, everybody, thanks for tuning back in. Welcome back to Prone to Ponder.
It's been a while.
It's been a couple weeks. We've been super lazy, and we've...
kind of busy.
Lazy, but busy.
Lazy busy. Busy.
Blazy.
Blazy? No, that's blazer. Taser.
Okay, there's a reason why we're not making money.
It's true.
So on this podcast episode, we have a good friend of ours, Chris Mellor. Chris, say hi to everybody.
Hello, everybody.
Chris.
Hey.
Hello, friends.
Chris is like our benefactor. He gives the most money out of anybody ever.
The only money.
Chris gives us 99 cents a month to do what we love to do.
Yeah.
And it's because of Chris that we get to do that. So thank you for being on.
And frankly, he texted us the other day saying, I'm not getting my money's worth. So
As the majority shareholder, I demanded a spot on this podcast.
So
And they were forced.
Yeah.
it's only fair. It's only fair.
So this podcast is going to be, I think we're going to do one this week, and then hopefully we'll do another one next week. Doing sort of like a spooky October theme, kind of thing.
It is October. I mean, this entire year's been pretty spooky, but
yeah,
we're gonna get into the spooky mood.
So Mellor has a ghost story, that he would like to share with us. So we want to,
that none of us have heard before. I haven't. I don't know. If
I
you
don't.
have.
Are you haven't heard it? I
No.
can just imagine when I said that I wanted to be on this, Colin rolling his eyes, being like, "This better be good."
No,
I
Colin
remember-
loves ghost stories.
It's not just one experience.
Okay.
It's it's the whole experience that I've had, because I went there a ton of times.
Perfect.
And it's kind of, even more importantly, how it ended and the last time that I ever went there. But I want to tell the entirety of the story.
Okay, well,
so that you get it.
we are
Perfect.
yielding our time to you, so feel free to just jump right in.
Yeah.
So interesting. I love Halloween, and I love horror movies, and I love ghosts and all of the things. And when I was in third grade, to start just what kind of like started my fascination with ghosts, my teacher, who I'm pretty sure was a witch, like a real witch, had this book on her bookshelf called Haunted Houses. And I read that book as a freaking 8-year-old, 9-year-old kid. Mm-hmm. And there was one story that freaked me the F out, and it stuck with me. I remember like I read this story and like being like wide-eyed in my bed for like 5 nights straight, just geeking out, just like, I think that there's a ghost who's going to haunt me. And so ever since then, there's always just been like some draw to like paranormal stuff. Mm-hmm. And so I was in high school. It was my junior year of high school, and I was in Algebra 2. Don't make fun of me because I didn't take Algebra 2 into my junior year.
Same.
But
I was in remedial math my senior year, so
I failed Algebra 1 twice.
It's just shapes.
No, that's geometry.
Why are they putting letters with this? My algebra teacher was actually he was actually a really cool guy, and he was like a songwriter who moved to Nashville, and he was like teaching school until he caught his big break.
Yeah.
And he wrote country songs, and he was a really cool guy. But it was around Halloween time. I remember this day, and he's like, "Tell me your scariest ghost story." And somebody talked about ghosts, and he's like, "But guys, ghosts aren't real." And I like jumped up. I was like, "Yeah, they are." And he's like, "Oh, have you ever seen one?" And I was like, "Well, no, but they're definitely real." He's like, "All right, no, they're not." And so somebody was like, "Well, there's Tennessee is super haunted. Like, it's a haunted place because the Civil War happened all in like Franklin and Nashville. Like, there's all kinds of Civil War places that, lots of blood, like big bloody battles happen in that area." And so I'm like, "Well, I'll prove. Like, I'll go prove that they're real." Like, I don't know why I believed that they were real, but I knew it, and so I'm like, I'll go prove it.
And you were a junior?
I was a junior in high school.
Yeah.
And so I got my friend Crystal. Well, first I looked up where the most haunted places in Tennessee were. And like I said, a lot of them were like in the Middle Tennessee, Franklin, Nashville area.
Yeah.
And so I found this place. It's called the Carnton Plantation. And there's a Civil War cemetery there at this big mansion plantation. And it's like a historical site. Like you can just go there for like the day and like take a tour, like go inside and take a tour. They do like weddings there. It's like a historical site. You can go there. But it's also known to be haunted. And so I looked up two things about it. First, I looked on this website that was super sketchy and it looked like it was made in like 1998. It was like telling you all the different things that you can expect, it like documented all the different things that you could expect to find there. And it was like, oh, there's a little girl who runs her stick across the fence. And oh, there's a Confederate soldier who follows you, stalks you around the cemetery. And I'm like, all right, we'll go check it out. And so then I looked up this place and it turns out that it was, so the Civil War was happening. The Battle of Franklin was happening. These people who owned the McGavics, they owned this house and they woke up one day and basically just like the Civil War was just like happening on their front yard. And I guess they're like, yeah, they're just like, whoa, they're like, oh, there's gunshots. We're awake and we're going to be in the war now. And so they actually allowed the Confederacy to use their house as a hospital. And the Battle of Franklin, which is what that battle ended up being, is actually known as to be the bloodiest battle in Civil War history. And there's something like 18,000 people were wounded and 1,500 people died in the span of like 3 days. And it all happened right there. And so people were dying so fast at this house that they dug this mass grave out in the woods, and they just buried, they just tossed in all the soldiers who died. And it also actually turned out that the daughter of the McGavick family, I think can't remember how old she was, but she actually died in the crossfire of this battle during this battle. In this cemetery, there's actually two sections. I haven't told you about the cemetery yet, but there's a cemetery and there's two sections. There's the section for the McGavick family, and then there's a section for all of the Confederate soldiers. So what happened was eventually what they did was after the Battle of Franklin ended and all the soldiers healed, they dug up this mass grave and they reburied all these soldiers in this memorial cemetery, which is just like you can see it from this house. So that's the place that I found. That's the place. I talked my friend in Crystal that we're going to go check out this place and prove my math teacher wrong, that ghosts do exist. So we got together. We went to a different cemetery first. We went to just like a normal, like a today cemetery, where people are buried today. And it was not scary at all. Like there was nothing interesting about it. It was on the way to this Confederate cemetery. And so we were like, okay, we'll check this out. And we were making jokes and we were jump scaring, but it was fine. There was nothing interesting. She was a photographer, so we were like taking cool pictures and stuff like that, but it was not interesting at all. Yeah. It was actually so uninteresting that we almost didn't go to the second cemetery. But so we went there and we're like, oh, let's just go to Sonic and but we're like, okay, no, we're going to go. And so to get to this cemetery, you have to drive through this normal neighborhood. And so we were driving through this neighborhood like, all right, this is kind of nothing, whatever. And we're driving through this neighborhood, and then you go over this big canopy of trees. It's like a tunnel where the trees just connect, and it's kind of crazy. And this the paved road turns into a dirt road, and you drive under this canopy of trees, and you get there, and all of a sudden you see this big old house up on this hill, and it's all lit up. Like I said, it's preserved by this historical society, so it looks really nice. But it's up on this hill, and it's lit up, and it's big. And it is creepy AF. Like it's like as soon as I saw it, the mood changed. Like we didn't say anything. Yeah, we didn't say like all of a sudden like we were kind of talking and then we saw it and then nothing. Like we weren't talking. Yeah, it just got quiet. We're like, oh my gosh, like this is it. And so we're driving. We don't even know like where to go or what to do. Like our intention was to go to the house, not the cemetery. And so we're driving. We hadn't said anything. We kind of go around this little roundabout and we stop, and all of a sudden we realize like that you have to turn around. And so we're like, okay, this is it. And we got out. We still hadn't said anything. We got out and we realized that this road leads you to the cemetery, not to the house. We get out, and I was hoping that the cemetery would be locked. Like I was hoping that it wouldn't, that we wouldn't be able to go in. Because at that point I was scared. Like it was totally different. Even already, it was totally different. Yeah, it was at night. It was late at night. And it was cold. It had to have been around Halloween because that's why we were talking about it in that math class. It was late October. It was cold. I remember I had this cool jean jacket on, but that's a different story. Yeah.
You should come on next week and tell us about that one.
Yeah. We can make it the cover picture of that jean jacket I still have. We can make it the cover picture for this podcast.
You still have it. That's the great part.
I do, and it hasn't fit me in like 15 years.
Someday.
Yeah, someday. So anyway, we this roundabout, and we realized like, okay, here's a cemetery. And I can look, and there's just graves, like as far as you can see. It's pretty dark, but it's not that wide, and it's all gated in. It's all fenced in, and it's not wide, but it's long and narrow. And there's just graves as far as you can see. And there's no lights. Like there's no lights lighting up this thing. There's lights at the house. You can see that clearly, and that's probably like 200 yards up. But all that's in front of you is the cemetery, and there's a gate. And I'm like, the gate's going to be locked, and I'm not about to jump a fence. And so we get out. Still hadn't said anything. I go to reach for the gate, and it just opens right up. It's just wide open, and I'm like, oh my gosh. And so also there's this big gnarly tree right at the opening of the cemetery. There's this big gnarly tree. It's got to be like 100-year-old tree. It's huge, and it's overhanging, and it's big, and it just looks like something out of a scary movie. We still hadn't said anything. It was just eerie, like tense immediately. And so we open this gate, and we walk in. And I'm not kidding, man. It was just cold. Like it was already cold, but it was colder. And so we walk. She's like clenched to me. And I'm like, honestly, more clenched to her. And I'm like, dude, this is freaking crazy. We're walking and we're just kind of stepping. And I don't know. I didn't know what we were even doing. She snapped a picture and it scared the hell out of me. I'm like, ah! And, but it was whatever. And we're walking. And I felt like something like took my hat. I had a backwards hat on. It felt like something picked my hat up off my head. And I turned around and there's nothing there. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so messed up. This is crazy. I had never seen a ghost or felt a ghost. I had just watched scary movies. I watched a scary movie when I was 13 and I had to sleep in my parents' bed at 13 for real.
I've been there.
So this is my first real experience with something like legit. And so I'm like, all right. And so we get and we're walking, and like I said, it's long. It's a long cemetery, and I can see that there's another gate. And like I said earlier, the cemetery is actually divided into two different parts, which is again the Confederate part and then the McGavick family part. And as soon as I can see this second part of the cemetery, I hear this noise coming from my left side, and it's like tick 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 tick. I'm like, what is that? I was so scared, and as soon as I heard that, I heard this loud boom, like boom, deep, come from up at the house. It sounded like a gunshot or a cannon fire or something like that. It was crazy. Immediately, as soon as I heard the ticking, I heard this boom. Dude, it was crazy. I'm like, what is going on?
I would have been in the car already.
Dude, no. I was trying to look cool for this girl. No joke. I was just trying to be like, oh, it's going to be fine. And so as soon as that happened, I'm like, I'm trying to figure out what this ticking sound is. And she's like, it's her. And I'm like, it's who? She's like, it's the little girl. I'm like, what? And so on the website, they said, you can hear the ghost of the little girl running her stick up and down the fence. This is the McGavick girl who died in the Civil War, and she plays in the cemetery. I'm like, there's no freaking way. Dude, we got closer. She took these pictures, and I mean, whatever. You watch these like ghost hunter shows, and they're like, ooh, it's an orb. I'm like, I'm pretty sure that's a moth, but fine. But she took these pictures, and you can see these crazy orbs right where the sound was coming from. And then she would take another picture, and the orbs were like closer in the frame than they were before, where the sound was coming from. No joke. It was freaking nuts, dude. It was crazy. And so we're like, okay, that's crazy. This is for real. I felt like I accomplished it. Like, this is for real. All right. So we left. I went back to class the next day, and I'm like, oh my gosh, ghosts are real. This is legit. I told my story the same way I'm telling you now. Well, that like, you know, that was crazy to me. It was something unexplainable that was real that I couldn't quantify, like, what was that? And so I would go back and I would always take new people. I would tell the story and people were like, let's go check it out. And I would always see or hear weird, like one time we heard this loud cackling coming from the woods. It was crazy and it was real. It was for real. Yeah, and I would keep going back and I would bring other people, and some people wouldn't even, like, the feeling that they got, they wouldn't even cross the threshold of the cemetery. They got out and they're like, no, I'm not going up there. Dude, I went up to the house one time and I listened in the door, and I could hear like shouting from inside of the house. I kind of went in the house, but that's later in the part of the story. But I've never actually been in the house, but
So
I
the
heard
house is
shouting from in
abandoned?
there.
Or like
It's not abandoned.
Or it's
nobody
like
lives there.
Okay.
It's like a museum. It's like a, like you would go and like you could take a tour. Anytime you can just go and take a tour through it, pay like $6 and you can just go walk through it. I still have never done that. But I went up there one night, and I remember one time, dude, it was not that cold out, and we got up to the house and I could see my breath, like for real. It got freaking cold. Like it was cold up by that house. And so this is, I don't really remember when what I'm about to tell you happened, but I had been there a lot of times and I'd taken a lot of different people, but it kind of became kind of like an obsession for me. Like I just kind of wanted to see more, like what else could I experience here? I just couldn't explain it. It was really interesting. And I just had like a vibe about it. Like there was just something about it. And I had never been there by myself, but one night I decided I was going to go by myself. And so I went, and I don't even really remember what happened while I was there. I didn't like black out, but I don't remember it. I don't remember it. I remember that I went there, and I kind of remember a flash of me driving home. And then the next thing I remember, I was in my bed. And I just don't remember the experience. And it was crazy. And I told my mom, and she's like, dude, you need to go read your Bible and figure out what this is all about. Cause this is crazy. Yeah. And so I did, and I vowed. I said that I'm never going to go back there again. I said I'm not ever going back there again. So that was in high school, and I said I have experienced this, and I can't explain it, and I've experienced it more, and it's just gotten more and more intense, and more things have happened, and it's not going to end. And now I've got this experience where something happened where I've lost control of it, so I'm not going to go back. So I got to college. And it was my first semester. It might have been, actually it wasn't. It was my second year freshman. First semester of my sophomore year at college. And I had already not done great at college to that point, but I was at this frat house, and all these guys were talking about ghosts because it was, around Halloween, and somebody said the thing. They're like, ghosts aren't real. And I'm like, yes, they are. And they're like, no, they're not. And I'm like, yes, they are. I promise you. And they're like, prove it. And I'm like, okay, I'll freaking prove it. I'll prove it. Let's go to the house. I'll take you there. And I promised, dude, I vowed. I like made a promise with God. Like, I'm not going to go back. And so we loaded up like 15 people. And we all went. It was like a 45-minute drive, maybe 30-minute drive from Nashville down deep into Franklin. And we all went there. And the same kind of thing happened. Some people were freaked out. They stayed in the car. Some people were just not. They just didn't care. Like, I think there was like people smoking weed in the cemetery, just like people were like drinking in the cemetery. But me and this guy Tom and my roommate at the time, I call him Gibson. I'm like, dude, we're going to go up to the house. I'm going to show you some real stuff. And so we went up to the house. We walked through, and there's this people kind of just running amok all in this cemetery. It's kind of crazy. But I'm like, dude, my two best friends, I'm like, we're going to go up to the house. And so we go up to the house, and there are these cellar doors on either side of the house. And I had been up to the house. Every other time, these things are padlocked shut, like the doors are locked, whatever. This time, the cellar door, the chain and the padlock were just off, sitting on the side. The cellar door was just wide, easily accessible to go in.
Christopher is so scared. He's like shivering over here.
You're like, Colin, hold me.
Yeah.
I'm like, tell me more.
Dude, for anybody listening and you two, take a note right now and try to guess what's going to happen next. And if you can guess it, dude, I don't know. You are never going to guess where this story is going.
I'm so ready.
Okay.
I'm like, where's the popcorn?
You're never going to guess. So there's the chain is off the cellar door, and we go in, and it's dark.
He's literally shaking.
He's like, oh my gosh,
he's so scared.
I'm shaking.
Yes, you are.
So the chain is off. We open the cellar door, and this is like 2008. We've got like flip phones and sidekicks. Right. So no flashlights. So I'm using my cell phone light to see. We walk down into the cellar, down into the cellar. It's kind of like, it looks like a horse stable. Like it smells like a horse stable. Looks like a horse stable. And dude, it's cold. It is for real cold, like really cold. And we're walking and it's hard to see anything. And I'm in the front and we walk around this corner and eventually we get to a door. And I tried, the door clearly goes into the house and it's locked. And we're like, oh,
Thank
and
God.
I'm like, good. Yeah, thank you. But I see next to the door, there is a light switch. And so I flip the light switch and I hear my friend Gibson go, oh my God. And I turn around and I look and there's 3 massive shelves, like shelves that you would see in like a warehouse, massive shelves full of liquor and beer and wine and craft beer, just there.
Wow.
And so I'm like, oh my gosh, we got to take some. We're going to get some. So there's
This
these
is not
wine
at all what
boxes
I
and
was thinking.
I told you you would never guess where this went. You would never guess where this was going.
Oh, this is good.
And so we took these big old wine boxes. We just shoved, there's like Patron and Tanqueray gin and these craft beers. And I realized later that they were there because they have like wedding ceremonies there. And I imagine they do like open bars and
Right.
that this is like a banquet stash. And so, like I said, the people that I was with, they were part of this frat house that was just a puddle of trouble. Like it was just a mess of people. And we like booked it out of there. We had these boxes of wine and wine boxes full of alcohol. And we booked it out of there and we're like, we got to go now. We just got like 12 bottles of liquor and 30 bottles of wine and a bunch of beer. Let's go. So we got back to the Lipscomb campus and the guys that I was with were like, we're going back to get the rest of it.
Oh, geez.
And I'm like, what? I'm like, I'm not going. Like, you go, I'm not going, but you go. So they loaded up 2 people in these cars. They went back down and they looted the place. They got all of it. There was for real. There was no less than like 100 bottles of wine, probably 300 bottles of beer, probably 50 bottles of liquor. Some of them were unopened. A lot of them, were half full, but we were drunk for like a month and I'm not kidding. And here's the thing. So here's the thing. I failed out of college that semester. I got kicked out of school. I didn't go to class. I stayed drunk that whole month. After that, they told me to not come back. So here's what I think. Are ghosts real? Yes, I think they're real because I seeked them out and I saw them. Mm-hmm. But more than that, are they spirits or whatever? I think that it is evil. I think that that's what the devil is. I think that the enemy actually caused that temptation, caused that situation. I promised I was never going to go back there.
Yeah.
And I did. And all of a sudden this thing was open and it caused me a lot of pain and a lot of trouble in my life because I found temptation there. I found alcohol there as a college kid that literally kept me from going to class, that literally kept me drunk for a month straight. I got kicked out of school. I had to go and get a job at freaking Radio Shack rather than graduating college and doing a career like I wanted to. I promised I wasn't going to go back there, and I did go back there. And what I found was actual suffering, like actual life, like trouble. And that's my story, man. Like it
Wow.
Yeah, thank you. Yes.
What a twist.
Please.
That was good.
Colin, can you clap too, please?
Oh, yeah. Sorry. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So a twist, absolutely a twist. And I've never been back there since. And I knew the second to last time I knew that I should never go back. And I did go back, and that caused me a lot of trouble in my life, man. I went back there after I vowed that I wasn't going to go back. And of course, that was the time that literally derailed my life and set me back a long time.
Wow.
So that's that, man.
That's a very interesting story.
Yeah, it is.
I didn't expect. I was expecting like heads in bottles or something. When you put the lights on. No, it was like, oh no, it's just liquor. But it's interesting how that turns out. It's funny because
That would make a great Pure Flix film, like those cheesy Christian movies,
yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
like around October.
And behind the door was a bottle of Grey Goose.
Yeah, that's
box of condoms.
Oh my God. Run.
Oh,
Yeah,
man.
that's funny. Well, thank you for that story.
Yeah. Okay, so I wanted to ask you, and you sort of, went into it a little bit at the end.
Wait, one sec. What was the name of the place again?
The Carnton Plantation, the Carnton Mansion, Carnton. If you're listening to this, look up a picture of it because it looks so freaking creepy. It looks so creepy. It looks like a place that was just made to be haunted.
Ugh.
There's the big tree that he was saying with the fence. It's pretty weird.
I painted that picture perfectly.
Yes, you did. That tree's old.
Okay, so I wanted to ask, as a man of faith, what is your opinion, perception, beliefs on ghosts? The way that I guess pop culture would talk about ghosts.
Yeah, so I love shows like Ghost Adventures, even though it's just so cheesy.
It's the best.
It's so cheesy,
bro.
Zach Bagans is just bro. Yeah, he's. I mean, whatever. I love that show, but I think it's sensationalized as can be. But what I think is that there is nothing good and pure and holy about searching for things like that. And I think that when you seek out things that are in the absence of goodness and pureness and holy, that the enemy will be there to meet you with that. And if you're willing to open up your spirit and open up your door, your door to your psyche to things like that, that the enemy will be there to meet you with whatever you want. And that was proven to me over and over. The more I went, the more I saw. Like I never went there and didn't experience nothing. Like I always saw something.
Right.
And the more I went, the more intense they got, the more crazy things happened. And I don't believe that there's just, this is just the spirit of a dead person who's just walking around, because so many freaking people have died that you would just be bumping into ghosts everywhere if that was the case, right? Like you would just be like, oh, excuse me. I don't think that's what it is, man. I think that there are all kinds of things that the enemy leverages against us. In the entire spectrum of humanity, when you open yourself up to something negative, the enemy is ready to meet you there with it. And when it comes to ghosts and paranormal things, I don't think it's any different. If the enemy can use something that is void of all good to suck you in and use it against you in some way, I think that's what I think that it is. And everybody knows ghost stories, and there's things like that have affected people and people have experienced. And I think that it's all in the spiritual realm, and no matter what it is in your life, if the absence of good is there, then the enemy is going to leverage it, and if you open your heart to it, then he's going to use that.
Yeah.
Well, in that case, you say that. I mean, that site of the plantation was a very negative sort of location because it was the source of a huge battle in the Civil War. And it's the same thing with like Gettysburg, where I've seen so many videos, so many Ghost Adventures, Go 100, whatever you watch, everybody goes to Gettysburg because they say it's one of the most like highest like activity places in the world, because it was like same thing as Battle of Franklin. Like there were so many deaths, and with that such negative emotion and experiences, I believe it does in some way leave a residue, like some sort of like something.
Just presence.
Like
there's it's just there.
Right.
A stain. That's a good word.
Yeah. And people say like they see, you'll see like in the distance, like someone dressed in Civil War garb, that it's just been there for almost 100 years. And I think that it's very possible that it can leave that at such a negative emotion. But I also feel like there are some cases where someone like, if your brother dies or something like that, and you feel their presence here and there, and they die in a peaceful manner, but they still kind of hang around. And I think going off what you were saying, that your point was saying that it was like the devil can use those realms and those experiences. It can be in a negative way, but I feel like there's also some places where it can be a little bit positive. Not from the devil, I mean, but you'll have these experiences.
Oh, like where somebody's mom, like, oh, there's a cardinal, and my mom's favorite bird was cardinals, and I saw a cardinal.
Like that. Yeah, sure. Yeah, because like the crazy thing is my stepbrother passed away about 5 years ago. Yeah, 6 years ago. His siblings felt like they felt him. She's like, I think my, Dan's sleeping in my room or sleeping in my guest bedroom. Cause every time I go in there, I feel this strong like male presence. And I feel this sort of, I see like on the bed, there's like impressions on the bed and stuff like that, where it's like they're still kind of around in a very positive
Were they
manner.
scared of it?
No, and I think it obviously it could have been grief, kind of you see grief in different ways and you experience that person in different ways. But no, they were never scared of it, and it sort of just kind of dissipate. Can I tell you a creepy story, Bo, about that?
Sure.
So, let me tell you something creepy. He died in 2014, and he went on a road trip with his dad, so the man married to my mother. I think they were in Vegas one of the days. They basically took like this big road trip together. One day, they were like hanging out, and my stepdad was like, Dan, what's going on? Like, are you okay? And he seemed very like distraught. Scared me for a second.
It's a plane.
Yeah, scared me for a second.
Relax. We're shaking now, bitch.
He said,
It's a plane full of dead people.
And he was like, what's going on? He goes, I had this awful dream last night. And he said, the dream was that he was in a like convention hall. So like picture like The Shining in the scene where he's walking through
in the ballroom.
Yeah, he was like in a big ballroom.
Or any other ballroom in the world, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Just I'm giving you paint everybody else's a picture too, so they can see it. So he's walking through this ballroom, and there's people drinking, there's people doing drugs, like dressed in classic garb. And he walks up to the bar, and he sees a man, and he says the man looks like James Dean, but not really.
So like me, I look like James Dean, but not really.
But that's how I'm just going off the story that I'm told. Okay, I'm just going off the story I'm told. Okay, and he's like, the man, the James Dean man, was like, hi Dan, and he knew him, and he was like, I don't know who. He's like, who are you? And he goes, I'm God. The man James Dean said, and he was like, well, what am I doing here? Like, I've never experienced a dream like this. He said it was so vivid. And he said, don't worry, everything's gonna be okay, and your dad's gonna be okay. He's like, everything's gonna be fine, but your dad's gonna be okay. And he said it was so weird that he said that so specific, like 3 months before he dies. And he woke up and he was like, I feel like something bad's gonna happen to my dad, and that's why he was so distraught. And so after he had passed away, probably about a week or two after the whole incident. And he said, now it clicked in my head. He's like, Dan
he died in a car accident.
Right. He died suddenly. So he said, it makes sense to my stepdad. He said, it makes sense now. He said, Dan was taken away from me, but I'm going to be okay. Isn't that weird?
Yeah.
That's heavy.
Yeah.
And then they continue to see him or feel his presence.
Right.
They think that he was sleeping in their room.
Right.
That.
And also we had for like 2 weeks after the funeral, or after he had passed, we got so many, I mean, if you've ever experienced, grief or gone through a scenario, something close to you like that, a lot of people, will reach out and do their best to help and bring food and all these things. His, it was crazy. Like, I felt like he was there the entire time. It was insane. Like, people would just bring his favorite food, would bring places that he worked at. They'd bring things, and it was just crazy how in a moment of grief and things like that, you can experience it. And for a while, we believed that it was like randomly, he worked at this deli for like 4 years in high school, and they like sent us food, and we had no idea why or how. And we asked, like, how did you guys get this? Like, how did you guys know? They're like, no, we just had a feeling. It was really weird. It was so weird.
Wait, they didn't know he died, but they just
yes, I think someone
started sending condolence food.
I get it was just plates and plates of like.
Don't mess
meat.
that one up.
Seriously, it was so weird, man. It was so weird. Very interesting.
Yeah, that's interesting, man.
Yeah.
Going back to what you said about like Gettysburg and places that just have like a stain. I love that the way you put that, Mars. I just kind of I had a thought about that like I believe that there's another dimension, that there's more happening around us. There's a spiritual dimension happening.
Absolutely.
And in places like that, and like in Franklin, Tennessee, where the Battle of Franklin happened, and a lot of other battles, that all that negativity that happened, like all that death that happened, again, like murder, like straight up murder, like war, the wars that happened, it was just murder. Like in the spiritual dimension, that is not of God, man. That is not of anything good. And so all of that stain, that negativity that is there, I imagine that in the other dimension, the spiritual dimension, whatever you want to call it, like that still lingers, like, especially because people are still seeking it out, right? Like everybody wants to go check out Gettysburg. Everybody wants to go see the Carnton Mansion. Like you got to pay to go see it.
Right.
Like I remember I took my mom there one time to the Carnton Mansion in the middle of the day. Cause I told her, I was like, this is freaking nuts. Like you got to check it out. And so we went to check it out. My mom, and that was like 7 minutes away from our house, and we drove. She wouldn't even get out of the car. I think she got out of the car. She wouldn't go in the cemetery, and she felt like she had something attached to her. Like she felt she described it physically, and we actually just talked about this recently. She's like, I felt like there was something clinging on to both of my shoulders.
Jeez. The
entire drive home until we crossed the threshold of the door of our house, and as soon as we got in the house, I felt it gone.
Wow.
Like.
That's
There's
terrifying.
real. It is terrifying. It's terrifying because I think it's terrifying because even though she went there willingly, right? I asked her to go. She said she would go. She wanted to go.
Right.
But there's places you can go and people that you can be around and situations that you can find yourself in that you know are essentially kind of helpless. Like you can be the words preyed upon and attacked. Sounds like I'm trying to present a Ghost Adventures episode, but you know what I mean?
They preyed upon to the young children.
Yeah, right.
So weird.
But like you can find yourself in a situation like that without even meaning to. I don't know, dude. It's crazy, and I just I like foundationally believe that stuff's real, man. And
absolutely. I think even obviously between the three of us, we can probably discuss and say that there wasn't really anything in the Bible that talks about like the in between. I'm not sure hearing that. If people is a prayer.
Yeah, there's a party. There's a party in the back here. We're hearing a bunch of voices.
I'm like, oh my god! I'm like, I can't be the only one hearing that right now.
Man, I really hope we don't check and there's nobody back there.
Oh my god!
I'm not gonna go look.
I'm gonna go home. Fuck this place. But there's like that in between. Like they don't just they don't.
I just uploaded Ghost into your living room in St. Louis.
Hey man, they're evolving. They're evolving with the times. I just think that there is that in between that was sort of developed because of these incredibly powerful moments in history, or like imagine just throughout history these. And we don't know like the extent of what a soul can do, or where these these ghosts come from, or how they're even like created after all this. But the amount of like negative emotion and what that can do, like just showing what negative emotion can do to someone, just being around it,
right.
Like you can almost feel it. Right. Isn't that crazy? And imagine like these giant, quote unquote stains that go on, these negative stains that are created throughout history. I mean, if we could put on like glasses and see into that, quote unquote world and just see like you said, like we'd be bumping into ghosts left and right, or in these, and you'd go to these places and experience that. Blows my mind.
Yeah. Going back to like what you were saying about the Bible, I always go back to this one where Jesus was walking on water.
Yeah.
And the disciples were like freaked out.
Yeah.
And Jesus is like, don't worry, I'm not a ghost.
Mm-hmm.
It's me. And
that's
like,
interesting.
And that always like struck me as well. I don't know. Maybe if ghosts weren't a thing, Jesus would have been like, guys, ghosts aren't real. Yeah. It's just me.
Yeah.
But he's like, no, I'm not a ghost.
I'm real.
It's me. Yeah. So I don't know. I always found that verse interesting. And it
was also when he fights the demons with the pigs. He fights the
demons. Well, obviously demons are real. Yeah, Christians believe demons are real. But there's a lot of Christians out there that believe, oh, well, there's heaven, there's hell, there's nothing in between, right? No, I agree that there's definitely some kind of dimension, spiritual dimension out there, and the Bible talks about that too, right? This is not a battle of flesh and blood, but a battle of, what is it? What's the verse I'm talking about?
What is it? The principalities of good and evil or something like that?
Yeah.
Well, hold on. Let me tie this back in because this is what Colin was just talking about with the pigs. Have you guys watched The Haunting of Bly Manor?
Yes.
Yet? Or have you?
I did. He did not. I cried, by the way.
I think it's awesome.
It's
a lot
an
of people
amazing
didn't
show.
like it.
I thought it was so beautiful.
I did too, man. A lot of people were like bashing on it because it wasn't as scary as the first season. But I thought that the story, it's not. But the story is awesome.
Absolutely.
And it also is creepy at a lot of points. But do you remember the scene in where the brother was he was at boarding school?
That's
and
what I was talking about. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, spoiler alert. Yeah. But he's talking about the pigs, and the father, the teacher was like, all of us are blameless, except for, what does he say? Like, except for the animals and except for Christ, basically.
Right.
And he goes, well, then why did Jesus kill all those pigs when he cast out the demons? I don't know. I just thought that was kind of eerie. It stuck with me since he said that.
And then he murdered the bird like 2 minutes later.
And then he murdered the bird. Yeah, exactly.
Because he was trying to, I don't know why he murdered the bird, but, he was trying to go home. That's what he was trying to do.
Well, he was basically just trying to go home, but he was like, I regret, I should have done something way worse.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's not here nor there. But sorry, Mars, to just straight up cut you off.
But that's what I was talking about, because basically what in the scene, this kid was at a boarding school back in like the 80s. And it was when the teacher was like also a priest. So the priest was talking about when Jesus took the demons out of the man and put him in the pigs, and then ran the pigs into the ocean, and then all the pigs died, and basically the demons were gone, and the kid is sort of like struggling with being at this boarding school away from his family. He asked a question. He goes, well, what happened? What about the man? Because the demons, it sort of was setting up a plot point for the show, but the demons, Jesus was like, okay, go from the man into the pigs. And they just went into the pigs, and then the pigs went into the ocean, and that was it. And he said, well, what about the man? The man, what did he get possessed? Because they basically said, like, possession can only happen for a short amount of time, but unless you allow it into you, which kind of goes back to your point earlier, saying that if you are seeking these things, seeking these negative emotions or these experiences or these, experiences, you are inviting this into your heart, and which means you are willingly letting these bad things in. And that's in almost any scenario. It doesn't have to be in the paranormal.
Right. Yeah, I mean, that's toxic relationships, that's addictions, that's,
Yeah, like, heroin, I just want to do heroin, so I'm just asking.
Sorry, not to laugh.
Yeah, like... Is that funny, Colin?
I guess so. Stop doing heroin.
I guess so. Apparently. Anyway,
it's interesting to see how pop culture, and not even pop culture, but like how culture in general over the years have evolved this idea of the paranormal. I don't think to what 100, 200 years ago they thought of ghosts is sort of the same thing that we think of ghosts now. Like, it's so consistent.
Yeah.
And I just think that's super interesting to me.
Mm-hmm.
And you were talking about how some people think that, man, it is so loud behind us. It's
I know.
freaking me out. It's freaking me out.
I mean, I see a tiki torch.
Okay, good.
Pretty sure
well, it's either an angry mob or it's a party. I thought it was interesting talking about how people think that some people they don't go to heaven, they don't go to hell, but they sort of just stay in this realm. Yeah. I thought that was interesting. Maybe the reason why ghosts are always so mean and so angry is because the only people who don't go to heaven or hell, who don't believe in ghosts, are the ones who actually end up being ghosts. Wouldn't that be funny?
That's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like there's a lot of movies out there that will be like, this ghost sticks around because they're not done yet.
With what?
Whatever they didn't fulfill their purpose.
Unfinished business.
Yeah. And that's why.
Haven't you seen Casper?
Yeah.
That's the friendliest ghost of all. And he had unfinished business.
It should have been called Casper, the ghost who needs to get shit done.
Yeah, right. I gotta get this chick to love me first. Christina Ricci, please.
I'm dead. Love me.
Oh, man.
Okay, so when I told you I read that book in third grade about haunted houses, right? So the story was that there was this teenage girl who was just being tormented by this poltergeist, which is like I found out that is just a ghost that like torments one person or a family.
Right.
And I mean, this story is just ingrained in my heart, and I'll never forget it. But this girl was just being tormented by this ghost, and eventually she found it carved into her wall. The girl's name was Esther Cox. So she saw it carved in her wall. Yeah. It said, "Esther Cox, you are mine to kill." And this story happened like in 1855 or something like that, Jeez. Right? And it's a pretty, like, I actually have Googled it, and it's like a pretty well-known, like, American haunting, quote unquote. But what it actually turned out to be was that her father was sexually abusing her.
Oh, that's fucked up.
And it is. But she had created this coping mechanism of ways to like have her grief and her trauma of an outlet that she was really tormenting herself with the idea of this ghost that was tormenting her because she didn't have any other way to like express this trauma. Wow. And yeah, it was later. And so yes, in one sense, that ghost wasn't real, right. But to her, it was real. She created it as a way to deal with this trauma, which, like we said, that was this stain, this super negative energy.
Right.
That, if we're talking about a spiritual dimension in the spiritual realm, that could be tormenting, that spirit, whatever it was, could be tormenting her in the same way, in the same, messing with her mind in the same way that just because it wasn't, a ghost that was, or, a ghost, a poltergeist that was causing her to experience all these things, that doesn't mean that it wasn't some kind of negative entity that was causing the sexual abuse. And then as a result, her response to that sexual abuse, it could have been, I mean, I believe it was that there was something there that was causing that, all of it, that whole situation.
Yeah, that's crazy because that sort of still ties back into like what you were saying earlier, the negative energy and the evil being separated from good, not just something that's evil, but separating yourself from the light, separating yourself from something good, which is how the Bible often describes hell, which I think is interesting. It's
just the separation. It's good, yeah.
It's a disconnection from God. Right. So thinking of the whole spiritual realm and all of the, ghost stories and hauntings and all that kind of stuff, tying that back into a separation from good.
It's like Scooby-Doo. That's Scooby-Doo.
It all goes back to Scooby.
Everything's like Scooby-Doo, man.
Dude, everything's like Scooby-Doo, that the real monsters are actually humans. Literally, right when you said she was being tortured by a poltergeist and it turns out it was her dad, I'm like, Scooby-Doo? 100%. Scooby-Doo
ahead of its time.
It was ahead of its time.
I don't think that would have made one of the episodes.
No, maybe. It was the one after Batman and Robin were in there.
Scooby-Doo fight Uncle Joe, creepy Uncle Joe who likes little kids.
Oh, jeez. It's coming up.
Oh, we're getting political now, aren't we?
Oh, Uncle Joe.
That was the funniest slip, I think.
Does he like to smell you?
Come on, man.
Not
you
true.
Shut up, man.
You shut up, man.
Anyway, okay. I think we're about an hour. So,
yeah.
Anything else from both of you before we wrap it up?
I would like to get your opinion before, if we can. If we have a little bit more time, I would like. So here's what's interesting about my life. One of the things, my life is incredibly interesting, but here's one of the things that's interesting about my life. In the month of October, every single night I do my best to watch a scary movie.
Same.
Like even starting in September, like I have this weird, I said at the beginning, like fascination with ghosts. And even though I'm not like actively seeking the most haunted places in Missouri where I now live, I still am like seeking that in some way, which is probably unhealthy, but it's the truth. That's where I'm at right now. Why? Like, why? Even after I know that it's messed up, like, why is it that I still am seeking that kind of thing?
I'm the same way, dude. I mean, all year round. I watch this YouTube channel called Nukes Top 5, which if you're into like ghost stuff, you should watch it. He's got hundreds of videos that will give you
do it like in 10 minutes.
Seriously, like there is so much because it's basically, we live in a digital age. It is all videos of people's experiences, certain ghost hunters and people who are not, was things that you don't see in the limelight all across the country or across the world, I should say. It's very interesting. And for me, I'm the same way. I've always had a fascination with the paranormal and going into the and just discovering it. It's not so much like I want to fight these things or I want to know and I want to know. I just want to know that answer. You okay? Did you fart? I want to know I want to know the answer. I want to know if that is real. I've never blatantly seen a ghost. I've had feelings. I've had that weird, you look over your shoulder and see some dark, I've seen those things and I've experienced them and I just want to be I want to know that answer. So I seek these things out, and I've had plenty of nights where I'm well, I'm not going to bed because my jacket hanging by my door looks like a man when I wake up in the morning. So for me, it's just that seek of knowledge. And I think also it could be for you, you seek after these things to know that answer. And it's very interesting. And it's like most things in life. We want to know, when we get passionate about something, we want to seek it. We want to know it. We want to know everything about it so we can live in it. And once we know that, or once we're, content with it, we sort of move on. But I think this is sort of an instance where we're constantly, there's no definite answer. I mean, there's all this evidence and people have experiences, and there's always that one redneck that's I think I saw my mama Joe outside, but she's supposed to be dead. But she's outside washing herself with a bucket.
Yeah, there's always one of those.
Yeah. Turns out it was just like Aunt Jimmy.
And it's funny that you say that they can't, that it's never quote unquote proven. That's always the best case for spirituality, right? If we could so easily prove, no matter, how many videos, like you said, thousands of videos out there, no matter how many videos, there's always going to be majority community saying, no, it's all fake, or it's in your head, or, whatever, that's not real, blah, blah, blah. It's the same thing with, every religion out there.
Right.
If you could prove it, it takes faith completely out of the question.
Right.
And if you could prove an afterlife or a spiritual realm or whatever that be, then now automatically, a lot of religions have some sort of scientific backbone.
I'm not going to cut you off. I'm going to cut you off. There's a perfect example of that, and I can't remember the movie, but it's with Jason Segel. And it's not a funny movie. It's basically he's a part of, his dad discovers this machine that discovers that the afterlife is sort of real in a sense. And all of a sudden there are mass suicides. What? That 3 to 4 million people a day are killing themselves because of this proven. It was proven, which is exactly what you're saying. It takes faith out of the equation. I
mean, the way that we reacted from coronavirus, could you imagine what would happen if something that actually?
Oh, The Discovery. That's what it's called.
I'll have to watch it.
It's on Netflix.
Is it?
Yeah.
I also think if you can prove it, then it's no longer interesting, right?
Right.
Like you and me, we know about gravity. And I know everything I need to know about gravity, and now I just, that's just a part of my life, and it is what it is. Right. I don't need to go seeking gravity, because it's just part of it. If you could prove that ghosts or the afterlife or whatever exists, then it's not controversial anymore.
Right.
It's not interesting anymore.
Right.
It's just one of those things that a lot of people have had experience or think they had experiences with, that other people never have, and so there's contention. There's people who say no, 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 and there's other people who say yes, yes, yes.
Yeah,
right.
And so it's
And I think, going back to your question of why you feel like you have to watch so many scary movies in the spooky months, I think that's part of it, right? Is you're trying to live a detached version of what you're really striving for, which is knowledge, that high of being in a situation that is completely and utterly unpredictable,
right?
Which is kind of hard to do these days, right? I mean, the kind of world that we live in. I mean, when was the last time that you did something that you had no idea how it was going to end?
You ever had 4 kids? I don't know how every day is going to end. I might be dead.
Jeez.
That's why I just keep having more. Who knows? Who knows? What
trying to
happens
kick.
if I have 5?
I'm just trying to kick the bucket at this point.
Yeah, which is funny because you both, love the scary movies and stuff, and I've started to enjoy them a little bit, but I definitely don't seek them out. Like, I'm not gonna sit down on the couch and be like, I gotta watch a scary movie.
Well, because I
right now.
feel like your family is like the opposite of him, where it's like he tried his. I shouldn't say like you do this now, but you sort of invite it into you, where your family's like, I don't mess around with that.
No, we
like
don't.
I don't mess around with that stuff because I
My
I
parents
believe
are
in
like that too, though.
Right, and they believe that if you invite that into your heart, you are just inviting trouble, which I understand, but you just got to know how to fight it.
I just told you that I think that that's true, and I still invite it into my heart.
Same.
I'm still like, Paranormal Marathon. We're watching all the paranormal activities now until I see something happen.
That's a great idea.
No,
Can we do a seance in the basement?
Colin, I will literally kill you.
And then I'll just be here.
It would be perfect.
Yes, that's exactly what I want.
The perfect crime.
Murder seance happens. Murder suicide.
Oh man, yeah. Because really, I don't enjoy being scared.
No, you don't.
Like mentally, I love being scared physically. Like, I don't like haunted houses and that kind of stuff. I'm talking like I love going swimming with sharks, like I've done in Belize. Like, I love I love rock climbing. I love stuff that the physical body should be scared of.
Yeah.
Right. But my brain is sort of like, oh, well, I'm not really scared of that. Okay, let's wrap it up with this last question. Ready? And you don't need to go into crazy details, but your favorite scary movie, and then we'll end.
It's either the original Halloween,
Mm-hmm.
Classic.
Michael Myers.
Classic. Did you like the new one, the 2018 one?
I did. I like. Yeah,
I like that one a
I
lot.
liked. I thought it was really good.
Yeah.
It's interesting because Danny McBride is the one who like wrote and directed it. Did you know that?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, Danny McBride did. Yeah. There's like apparently there's like this big correlation in Hollywood between comedy and horror. Like, you have to have the same timing between scaring and also comedic timing. But I did. So Halloween, the original Halloween, I think it's just a masterpiece, and I don't really think it's scary anymore, but it just totally like encapsulates the autumn atmosphere, and it's just brilliant. And also and then Paranormal Activity. Those are my two.
Yeah.
Those are my two favorites. I love them.
Not to mention,
they're awesome.
John Carpenter just changed the genre with Halloween.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you know he also he directed the movie? I don't know if he wrote the movie. He directed the movie for sure, and he also wrote the iconic score.
Yeah,
Crazy.
that's what I'm
that as
talking
well.
about specifically is the score.
Yeah.
For
Yeah,
that movie.
created slasher films for the time. Yeah.
Yeah.
This movie, it's not my favorite of all time, but is one movie because I love a lot. It's one movie that I've never been able to finish, and it's The Exorcist, the original.
No.
Because
classic.
it is a very good. Like, I remember my dad saw it in the 4th grade, and he didn't sleep for a month because he said
That's
the time.
like what all parents say. They're like, I'll never watch that movie again. I'm like, when did you watch it? They're like, I was 9.
Yeah.
I'm like, why would you do that?
That's what you did. That's what you did in the 80s, man. You just took your kids to like rated R movies and you watch it.
My wife went to go see the Blair Witch Project in the movie theaters when she was in 6th grade.
Jeez.
Right.
That's
like
awesome.
That's another one. That's if I had 3, that's my 3rd.
But The Exorcist, man, I know how it ends, and like the entire story around the movie. Like, she didn't get any more roles after that. That she was sort of scarred. She broke her back and a couple ribs during the scene where they flail her, and. Like the fact that she was like scarred as a human being, that they felt that the house was haunted afterwards, and that they like doing this at the time.
It's based on a true story, man.
Exactly. And the fact that you invite this in, it was like when Jim Caviezel was Jesus Christ. Like, he was on the cross and he got electrocuted twice.
Right.
Like, it's just one of those things when you invite those emotions and those experiences, it can create either a negative or a positive, Yeah. Oh, yeah. But I can't finish that movie.
Yeah, I'd say my favorite, like, fun, scary movie that I will never, like, turn down and I'll never turn off. And if I see it while I'm watching TV, I'll watch it every single time, is Scream, the original one.
Yeah.
I love that movie so much because it's so meta and it's so
meta. It's brilliant.
It's so
brilliant.
It's so brilliant.
Self-aware. It just knows what it is.
And I tell everyone, like anyone that I know who's like super not into scary movies, I say that's the first one that you got to watch because it's not scary and it's very funny and it's so smart. It's I could appreciate so many things about that movie. So I love that one. So that's my favorite fun one. But then my favorite like not fun one, which I don't watch often. I think I've only actually ever seen it twice. Babadook.
Oh yeah.
I love that movie.
But that's about depression. Like
right.
That's about.
I love when scary movies just take the idea and turn it on their head and they're like, okay, well, and they really spell it out for you at the end of the movie too. Like they don't just leave it up to the audience to make up their mind of what it's about. It's like, no, you just watched a whole 2-hour movie that scared the shit out of you. Yeah. And really it's about what's going on in your life right now. I thought that was awesome.
Yeah. That was a lot like Hill House. The Haunting of Hill House. Yes. Where it's not so much the house, it's the people's experiences with each other. Oh man. And I think you would really enjoy Hill House and Bly Manor. Because you're right, it does kind of deal. It does deal like in the more what goes on in your life and what you're trying to run from or what you're trying to accept. So it's very. I like the.
Can I give you wait before we go? Just last thing before we go. Can I give you an awesome fun fact about Scream?
Sure.
So I just read this the other day. In the movie Scream. Originally, the idea was that Drew Barrymore was going to be Neve Campbell's role of Sidney.
Yeah, I did see this.
Wes Craven consulted with Stephen King, and they decided that the way that they were really going to create the hook for this movie was to swap roles and put Drew Barrymore in the opening scene, where everybody would just assume that she was going to be the lead actress, and then she was going to die 10 minutes in. And so Wes Craven consulted with Drew Barrymore, and she thought it was brilliant, and that's like one of the most iconic things because Drew Barrymore, she's the biggest name actress in that whole movie, and she dies within the first 10 minutes.
And she was big at the time too. It's not like she was just
right. Not Drew Barrymore now. Drew Barrymore back when she was the hotness, and so she was opening scene, one of the most iconic opening scenes, and it's just unmatched the way that they do that. It's just nothing like it had ever been done, and even today, like it's amazing. And so, she dies within the first 10 minutes and everybody was just like, WTF, that's crazy.
And
Okay. Well, Chris, thank you for being on Prone to Ponder. Hope you got your money's worth for this month.
It's a lot of fun. I'll make sure that I keep on sending you guys that money. Although I want a third of it now. So it'll be 66 cents this month.
This month 66 cents.
Oh, 66.
Is that weird? Oh, Don't ever say that again. We're cursed forever.
Okay. Well, thank you for being on. Thank you for your stories, Colin.
He's not going to be able to sleep tonight.
I'm going to fall asleep watching Disney movies.
He's going to watch like Prince of Egypt.
Yeah.
Let my people go.
All right. Well, thanks again. And we hope everybody has a great week this week. And hopefully we will see you next week.
Woo.
All right. Good night, everybody.